Hello and welcome to the BigFix Briefing Room. My name is Michelle McGough and I'm here with Mr. Joe Saylor. And this month we're going to talk about Microsoft Patch Tuesday. Joe's got a story about React2Shell and we're going to wrap up the year. So Joe, do you want to get us started with Microsoft?
Yeah, of course. So by the numbers, we've got 57 total vulnerabilities this month. That's quite low, just on average, but we kind of expect that in December. This is when, everybody takes time off, including the people detecting and taking advantage of vulnerabilities. So we get a little bit of a numbers break here.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, we do have 3 0 days to talk about, one of which has been actively exploited. And if you're looking for something to accelerate in your patching, I've got a recommendation for Outlook and any of your React web servers. So starting with the actively exploited 0 day, it's in the Windows Cloud Files driver. That's kind of not even relevant. The context doesn't really matter. It's just a local vulnerability where an attacker who already has exploited the system or has already convinced someone to open an application can elevate their privileges to system.
Okay. Do you feel pretty good about that 7.8 score, or is that a little high?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little high because this isn't an initial compromise. To me, the user interaction required and the privileges required are really the things that are really, really threatening, because those are the initial compromises. And as I've already mentioned, I don't know, probably 1,000 times, there are just millions of ways to elevate the system in Windows, right? So this isn't particularly novel in terms of its consequences either.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Moving on to some of the other 0 days, there is a vulnerability in the GitHub Copilot for JetBrains module. It's a remote code execution exploit. This one to me really kind of highlights I don't want to say vulnerability, but the shortcoming in the CVSS scoring system, because this is another one where a local attacker can append extra commands and basically do whatever they want for how the auto approve setting is configured in Copilot. So that's pretty liberal to begin with, right? So, anything that can be run locally through a command shell can be run through this exploit. However, you have to trick someone into clicking on something, or you have to already have privileges to run this stuff on the local box. The thing that's kind of weird about how CVSS works is Microsoft, as an authority, usually scores this based on the most vulnerable value for each of the categories. So
Yep.
in this case, it's marked as user interaction not required and permissions not required. But it really requires either of those, one or the other, the attacker needs. But because either of them could be none, either of them could be not required, they are both marked as not required. And so the scoring on this is way, way, way high, even though it's not an initial method of compromise, right? You already have to have social engineered someone into clicking on a malicious piece of code.
Okay. So yeah, I can understand how they got to this score. And to your point, is because of the shortcomings in how scoring works. It'd be interesting to do. I think in the next year, we should probably do a review on how that scoring works for anybody new to it. But for now, those numbers, how we get to, say, a value of 10, something that's, extremely urgent to close, highly vulnerable, is based mostly on whether or not there's user interaction, the permissions, and then also the egress. How are they getting in there? Can they do it over the network, or do they have to be local? Those seem to be the biggest ones.
Yeah, and especially situations like this where the either or is both marked as none, it just really distorts kind of the overall scoring.
Agree. Thanks for catching that one, Joe.
All right, and then on to the last 0 day, there is a vulnerability in the PowerShell invoke web request module, where if you use it to read a URL, some website somewhere that has some malicious code in it, it will automatically execute the malicious script. Obviously not ideal. This is another one of those ones that requires somebody to be tricked into contacting a malicious website, or maybe you would have to have an attacker with a machine in the middle somewhere that might intercept a valid request. So not actually that easy to exploit this thing.
Okay, and we're going to be talking about, I think, the same vulnerability a little bit later when we get to Microsoft Hot Patch.
Yep, something similar. One thing to look out for this is if you use PowerShell a lot, especially the invoke web request command, there's a new warning that will show up after you apply this patch. Basically, there's a new switch that's on screen there, use basic parsing, that will tell PowerShell to just never execute any script that it connects to with invoke web request, which is the thing that closes this vulnerability. So you're going to get a nice new warning. Don't panic.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, moving on to some criticals for the month. We have our good friend, Office remote code execution in the preview pane. There isn't anything new to say here. This is just the same thing that we see every other month or so. There's a couple this time. They have ever so slightly different flavors, but they are extremely threatening in Outlook and not extremely threatening in any of the other Office components. So even though they're vulnerable, like in Excel or Word, those parts of the vulnerability are not very scary. It's just in the preview pane where these can be threatening.
Yeah, if there's anybody left still using the preview pane, I would love to hear how you are maintaining your confidence in that. React, that's our story of the month.
It is, yeah. So I guess I should have left the Windows hot patch slide before this bumper slide, but whatever. The timing's fine.
This is the smaller of the two stories. So just an FYI, if you're using Windows hot patch, you're going to find a couple things this month. One is that Microsoft released 2 hot patches for the same OS versions this month, which is a little confusing for cumulative updates. One of those is actually just a patch for PowerShell. And that PowerShell patch, if PowerShell has an active session, is going to require a restart. So you thought you were going to have a hot patch, but it's going to most likely behave like a cold patch. If you want to know more about that, I know you can't click the link through a video, but Microsoft has disclosed the risk of a restart with this patch. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with your BigFix contact or reach out to your Microsoft support.
Yeah, and this has been just very irregular as time has passed. Hot patches every month have changed just a little bit. So I really hope they settle down. It's been a journey for us at BigFix to support hot patches from Microsoft. So please bear with us as they change month to month like this.
Yeah, actually, just to extend on that a little bit, the relevance on this can be a little bit challenging depending on how you're using BigFix and how you are patching. So depending on your use case, you may need to get in touch with us to get a little bit of advice here. But rest assured, we do put that relevance in there up front. So you should have everything you need. I have that verified for this month. Everything that needs to be there from a BigFix perspective is there. You should be good to go. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us and we'll help out. Microsoft will be expanding this, is my understanding, going into the next year. So right now it's on a limited number of operating system versions and limited patch content. Right now, I think we're just seeing it for the native OS, but they will likely be extending that into applications where they can.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Appreciate the detail.
This is the real story.
It is the real story, and I fervently hope that I am not breaking this news to anybody. This one came out, it's recent. This is maybe 5 or 6 days old at this point. React2Shell is a vulnerability in the React server framework where an attacker, really anybody, can basically trigger this thing on accident. But an attacker in a pre-authentication state, meaning they don't need to have any sort of credentials at all on your React server, can just run any sort of remote code against your server through its HTTP interface. So just if it's open, if it's visible on the internet, they can just take it over. And how does that make you feel?
I made the grimace face. That's how it makes me feel.
Yeah, that's about how it made me feel too. Just to, I guess, set everyone's mind at ease, you may be aware that BigFix uses React in WebUI. However, we don't use any of the React server components, and so BigFix is not currently relevant to this issue. So no need to worry from the our product's perspective. However, anywhere that you might have a web server that may use React, like for sure, be paranoid about it right now. Some of the security authorities out there have done some scans on just the public internet, and they found about 77,000 public IPs that are currently vulnerable to this right now still. So any one of those can be just taken over at will. We already know about 30 organizations that have been breached through this vulnerability. So it's spreading fast, just super serious, high threat kind of vulnerability in the React framework.
Thanks, Joe. I think this is a really big story. I'm glad you raised it for this month.
Yeah, and in terms of what you can do about it, we are currently developing detection tools for this using our BigFix scanner framework. So keep an eye on the forum for the release of that.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't know we were doing that. That's great.
Yeah. And just a quick note, I guess, on CVSS scoring, the 10 on this is actually very convenient because there's kind of no ambiguity. Like it makes my brain a little bit happy to see 10 because with 10, that all the dials are all the way up. It's network. There's no user interaction required. There's no credentials required. There's no question marks. But then like every time I see a 9.8, like it seems like that's really close to a 10, right? Doesn't it? It seems like it's super close. But then you add all these question marks like, geez, that missing 0.2% could be user interaction required. And suddenly that's not a big deal. Like if somebody has to be tricked into it, then it's not as important. So I really appreciate the unambiguous nuclear explosion of the 10. So thank you, React. I appreciate it.
Good point, Joe. Thank you. And yes, we've reached the end of the year. Microsoft gave us a little gift in advance by giving us a lighter month of work to do. So that's great. We'll be going into the next year with a whole bunch of new BigFix releases that are coming very soon. And I think most of us customer-facing folks are around till the end of the year. If you need to get in touch with your BigFix person, whoever that point of contact is, you might want to just reach out and make sure they're going to be available when you need them. We're going to go into the holidays. Support will be here still 24/7. So we've got you in support, but some of the other folks may be on vacation. Going into January, we can expect some new things like the announcement of the latest 2026 ambassador team. Those announcements are going to go out in January. We'll also have some announcements on the next round of BigFix Masterclass. We will be offering that in North America, Asia Pac, and Europe. So those are confirmed. We just need to get those dates out to you. Like I said, we'll announce those in January. And if you stayed with us this long, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you again next month. Bye.